I'd now like to introduce Glenn McCoy, our Vice President for Finance and Chief Financial Officer.
Thank you, Mary, and good afternoon. I will be presenting the highlights of our 2012 non-consolidated financial statements, which cover the Airport Authority's activities here at YVR. The Airport Authority earns revenue from three main sources. The first source is aeronautical revenue in the form of landing and terminal fees, collected to recover the costs related to airline operations. This revenue amounted to $120.3 million in 2012, down from $121.6 million in 2011. In 2011, the Airport Authority introduced the Gateway Incentive Program, a 5-year program that freezes total aeronautical charges at 2010 levels, regardless of actual levels of landed weight and aircraft capacity. While a number of airlines participated, some did not, with the net result being a $1.3 million decrease in aeronautical revenue in 2012. The second source of revenue is non-aeronautical revenue, which includes revenue from concessions, such as duty-free stores and car rentals, car parking, and land and terminal rents. Revenue from these sources increased to $176.2 million in 2012, up from $158 million in 2011, due mainly to increases in concessions, including duty-free, increased land lease revenue, as well as the sale of automated border clearance, or ABC kiosks, to other airports. The third source of revenue is the Airport Improvement Fee, or AIF. To help fund capital projects, the Airport Authority collects the AIF. Total revenue earned from the fee in 2012 was $107.1 million, up from $89.7 million in 2011, mainly from the increase in AIF rate implemented on May 1st, 2012. A portion of non-AIF revenue goes towards covering the costs of operating the airport, which includes salaries, wages, and benefits, material, supplies, and services, payments in lieu of taxes, and insurance. In 2012, these costs increased by $4.9 million, from $135.9 million to $140.8 million. The increase is mainly due to costs related to the sale of ABC kiosks and increased salaries and benefit costs. The Airport Authority also uses a portion of its revenue to pay ground lease rent to the federal government. In 2012, the rent expense increased by $4.3 million, from $34.8 million to $39.1 million. The increase in rent was due to increased revenue, as I described earlier, as the ground lease rent payment is determined as a percentage of revenue. When the total cash needed to pay for capital projects during any year exceeds the amount of cash available after payment of operating costs, ground lease, and interest costs, debt financing is required. The Airport Authority takes a conservative approach to debt levels and strives to achieve a reasonable balance between debt and sources of revenue. Debt carries interest payments, which in 2012 amounted to $31.5 million, down slightly from $31.6 million in 2011. As required under generally accepted accounting principles in the Statement of Operations, the cost of capital projects is spread over the useful life of the projects, as opposed to being recognized as the cash paid each year during the project's construction. This spreading of the cost over the useful life is reflected as amortization on the Statement of Operations. Total amortization in 2012 amounted to $108 million, down slightly from $108.1 million in 2011. In 2012, the Airport Authority realized $1.7 million in dividend revenue from Vantage Airport Group, formerly YVR Airport Services. The Authority also recorded a write-down of capital assets of $1 million as part of the AB Pier upgrade project. The total excess of revenue over expenses was $84.9 million in 2012, up from $59.4 million in 2011, due principally to increased revenue from the AIF, concessions, and the sale of ABC kiosks. When we adjust our excess of revenue or expenses to a cash basis, we add back amortization, which is a non-cash expense. In 2012, the Airport Authority generated $181.6 million of cash flow prior to investment in capital projects, which is made up of the two amounts shown here, $78.7 million of net cash flow from operations, plus $102.9 million net of collection costs from the AIF. During 2012, the Airport Authority invested $106 million in capital projects. So as shown here, we used $106 million of the cash generated in the year to pay for these projects. This left $75.6 million in cash generated during the year. When added to the $66.6 million of cash we had at the beginning of the year, this leaves $142.2 million of cash available at year-end, which will be used to fund projects in 2013 and future years, all part of the $1.8 billion 10-year capital plan. So in conclusion, the Airport Authority remains financially strong and well-positioned to deal with the next phase of the airport's growth. Thank you.